Hello, I'm Sarah Murray, the Managing Editor of Fashion Quarterly, and we are here today with Miele's Designer Series. Thank you all for joining us. Today we have Brooke Tyson here to talk about her collection and also how to increase the longevity of clothing. So, hello Brooke, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So your collection is sort of a contemporary take on ceremonial wear.
Yeah.
How do you sort of look after that in your wardrobe?
Yeah, so it can look a bit scary because some of the pieces are quite structural and there's a lot of
Yeah.
like frills and flounces, but generally, you know, it's pretty standard care. Everything's quite well made and stays together well. So, yeah, some of the pieces obviously can be hand washed, like the delicate. Some of these delicate pieces can be dry cleaned as well, but we also have pieces that can go through wash cycles. If it's like the Miele washing machines, they've got like a delicate cycle which can be used in place of dry cleaning. So we can, say that our silk bias cut slips and quite simple, more simple pieces can go through that really well. They've washed. I actually saw an example where they've washed this through the machine. Yeah, wow. and it came out just fresh and
that's amazing.
Yeah,
because you'd never think that was something. This looks quite delicate.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's kind of common sense, like it's working out whether something might fall off or But yeah, their machine cycle was pretty incredible. I watched them put a rose through the washing machine and it came out like perfectly intact through their delicate cycles. So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I can trust it with some of the silks and things. But yeah, also things like hanging well, storing in non-damp, like making sure that the area is not damp, using a dehumidifier if you need to. Some of the pieces, can be stored in garment bags, which is good. Just folded properly, and when things are washed and put out to dry, just make sure that they're hung flat and not weighted. And
So it's sort of about having a bit of time and consideration.
It is a little bit of time. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more time put into. Caring for special pieces. Yeah.
Perfect. And so, can you tell me a bit about how your label began?
So I started actually a fashion collection in 2008, when just after my daughter was born, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I'd been, for years and years working with girls and that had studied fashion and had taught me a lot. And I'm actually self-taught, so so I just decided it was a real learning journey. But I just decided to start a label, and I had a few, contacts for stockists and things like that, and I ended up wholesaling throughout New Zealand. And so that was sort of the beginning of that. And then I got sort of attention for, I think, quite bold prints and, like unusual designs. So I dressed a few musicians, and for music videos, I've styled quite a few music videos and things like that. And then, in 2000 and I think it was probably 17, the idea sort of came along to release a bridal collection. So my intentions with that were always just to enter the industry in a really different way, not traditionally at all. And I really didn't want to do it if it wasn't sort of fashion bridal and pieces that I really loved. And the great thing about it is being able to use fabrics and designs that I probably couldn't afford to do in a fashion collection. Like you can use really amazing pieces and big bold silhouettes, and so it was sort of born from that. And then one of my main things that I wanted to do with the bridal collection is that knowing that it could be reworn again. So with brides, I either offer like a service where it can be part of the design where it is something that can be worn again, or I'll remake it for them afterwards, or dye some of the pieces. Like a lot of these more simple silks and beaded fabrics dye really beautifully. So then it's not a white dress and you can wear it again. So
although I am partial to a white dress.
I know some people love white dresses. I guess you just can't wear a white dress to another wedding, but you can wear it again.
And so you touched on your silhouettes briefly, and I think that's something that is so, I guess, outstanding of your range. I always feel like I can tell one of your designs because you have amazing,
so nice.
like for example, what you're wearing, like this beautiful sleeve. And so how do you sort of, I guess, push the boundaries structurally wise? Because that can't be easy to create, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. Like that's something actually that is, because I guess it's because bigger silhouettes are back in, like big 80s shoulders, and I'm just like, yay.
Yes,
So,
me too.
Yeah. So obviously I'm wanting to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and yeah. So basically, it starts, usually the design sort of quite often starts with the fabric for me, and some fabrics don't do exactly what you want them to. So it's figuring out ways that you can get them to. Like whereas things like this, I put boning in, and like I can actually keep the structure in that way. So that's all part of my design process. But my next collection is sort of inspired by this 20th century photographer, Edward Weston, and his like silhouettes. Even like he does, it's a lot of nature, like shells. Like sort of shell shapes. Yes. I've followed quite a bit, and like the pleating, of shells and koru, and then he does like photos of cabbages and peppers and underside of mushrooms and things like that, and it's all just really textural and like lots of pleating, lots of detail.
Beautiful.
And some of them are sort of like quite human-like forms. Yep. So that's been a really exciting challenge to get the structure and the shapes and the new pieces. So, yeah.
Well, they're amazing.
Thank you.
So sustainability is obviously a massive talking point at the moment across the fashion industry. Yeah. So how do you sort of ensure that your garments can last a lifetime? Yeah,
so I think really like it is the care of the garment, like you can keep something for so long as it's cared for properly.
Yes.
As soon as it's not, it's out, So I think we touched on it before. It is like, not cleaning too often as well. I think that's the problem that a lot of people have is, throwing things in the washing machine all the time.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. With the Miele range as well, like the one thing I really loved about watching their cycles was, you can do like mohair jumpers and your, like your wools and your silks and your, really delicate fabrics, but they don't need to be washed too often. And another feature that they had was you can, like if you've got a winter coat that you want to freshen up before the next season, you can put it in. They've got like a freshening cycle, which was so crazy to me. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to do that with everything. So also, like keeping like really special pieces in garment bags, folding things away properly, making sure that everything's aerated. I mean, I know a lot of people that separate their summer and winter wardrobes. I know, but yeah.
I mean, I'd love to be that person.
Yeah.
I just am not her.
Yeah. But another thing is, like altering things and mending.
Yes.
And getting someone professional to do it. So I've got a massive mending pile at all times, like an alteration pile that, I get through like a few pieces every year or so. But it's a way to, like, you can change the garment even, like people can take things to an alteration place and get it completely reworked. So it's definitely, it's an investment and it's a little bit more time, but it is worth doing because, we're trying to get rid of fast fashion, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I don't mend things myself, but I give my mum still my whole pile.
Oh, do you? Mums, they're so good at cleaning and mending. And,
mending. I just don't think I'd be able to sew.
Yeah. I think if you can't mend, I always think about people that can't do mending, and I just think, oh man, I'd hate not to be able to, because that's like a huge, I pretty much alter every single piece of clothing that I have, Yeah. So nothing stays the same for too long. Like I'm like, oh, I think I want that a bit shorter, or, so I'm glad that I can do that.
You are an expert also.
Yeah.
So we touched on dry cleaning earlier.
Yeah.
And whenever I see anything that has to be dry cleaned, I sort of like instantly freak out because I'm like, oh God, what does this mean for me? And how am I going to do this? And it, sort of becomes a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
How can people sort of work around that?
Yeah, so I think obviously some garments are, just dry clean it. Like don't touch it yourself. Yeah. But it is, I guess it is, it's common sense. And I think a lot of dry cleaning labels, care labels, they've got to put the easiest way of care, but also the most sensible, that the garment's not going to be completely ruined.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's where it would be amazing to have a Miele, machine where you actually know that it's going to come out and not be, it's like the way they've got that honeycomb area in there where it's just much more gentle on the clothing and is a better way. So I think yeah, if you can, if you can have access to a Miele machine,
Yes.
yeah, it's a really good way to wash without being scared. But otherwise, like delicate hand washing is, is always another option with silks,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's just turning garments inside out, gently washing, not wringing it, just like gently, you can dry it in the middle of a towel or something, and then laying things flat so they don't get the, the hanging marks and
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your iron, you want your iron to be on a the right. It's just making sure you do everything right. So it does take longer, but it is doable.
Yeah, and will obviously keep your clothes lasting longer.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned silks because I feel I'm probably again guilty of just like chucking it in, machine. I will put it on like a hand wash spin, but I think that's what Miele does so well because their delicate cycle sort of does the right detergent and
see, detergents I think are much more gentle as well. Yeah, I saw their stain removing detergent and it was crazy. It just completely removed, like they think they put iodine or something or betadine or something in it, and the colour just completely disappeared compared to other brands, and it lasts a long time as well, and the fragrances are amazing. So yeah.
So Brooke, can you tell me about your current collection or the one that's coming out?
Yeah, so I've got a new bridal collection coming out soon, ceremonial collection. So it's pretty exciting. I'm like really pushing the boundaries with silhouette this time. Yeah, so it's, as I mentioned before, it's inspired by Edward Weston photography. So yeah, just with the real textural shapes and of shells and pleating and folds of fabric, and it's so I've used some really amazing fabrics, but kind of definitely pushing the boat out a little bit on the structure and silhouettes. So a lot of pleating and circular design. And,
sounds absolutely exquisite.
It's going to be really exciting.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. And different colours as well this time. I've introduced a metallic, so a couple of gold pieces. So that's really exciting. And then I've got a fashion collection that I'll be releasing soon as well, and that will be trans-seasonal. So we'll add small drops to it throughout the year. And one thing that we'll be doing will be encouraging people to wear pieces from last collection, last season's with new season, and really, and so it won't be the traditional summer, winter, spring. It'll be worn right through the year, and really encouraged to be, worn for years and years to come. So
it's sort of more, instead of like keeping up with trends, it's more appreciating what you've got and then integrating that into the wardrobe you have. Yeah,
definitely. And there's ways about, styling things so that they are still obviously, really current as well. So that's just changing, what you wear it with, shoes you wear it with, different pieces that you wear it with. So there's definitely there is numerous ways to keep what you're wearing really current while also just loving it for a long time. Yeah.
Amazing. And what about what's coming up for brides this year?
Bridal trends I'm really loving. I'm loving the way there's just so many bold silhouettes coming out. So whether that be in like more structural shapes or lots of layers. It's just a lot more adventurous than it ever was before. I feel like bridal is, there's a shift. There's obviously the more traditional, but there's also a shift, and it's becoming much more sort of like fashion appreciated. So I think that is lending itself to, being worn again rather than just being a piece that you'd only wear for your wedding and not, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say it's exciting because these beautiful creations aren't just going to be like locked away in the wardrobe. They're like made to be worn again.
So that's a huge part of what I do. Like I really want things to be reworn. So anytime a bride comes back and says, "Can you take the train off this?" and like I do a lot of like beaded robes and things that can be cut off and worn over for an event over like a a cami and some wide leg pants or something like that. Just
beautiful.
Really, so it can be used again. And dyeing a lot of the silks too. So
Great. Thank you, Brooke, for coming in and speaking with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to our Fashion Quarterly Instagram audience who are tuning in. If you'd like to read more about Brooke, you can pick up our recent issue of Fashion Quarterly, which is in store now.